supposed to clap. Okay, so I'm pleased to have with me Dr. Rachelle Gilmour, who is an associate professor of Old Testament at the University of Divinity, yes, Trinity College in Australia. Well, thanks for this conversation, Rachel. So you've been around in biblical studies for quite some time, and I know you got your PhD at the University of Sydney, which in different parts of the world is not one of those places that's well known for producing biblical scholars, but it's a solid program. So do you want to share with us what your experience was like doing the PhD in that setting?
It is, or it isn't well known?
It is not that well known.
Yeah, I mean, certainly within Australia, it's been the strongest biblical studies department for a very long time.
Yeah.
Historically, it's shifted from the University of Melbourne to the University of Sydney, but certainly when I was studying at the University of Sydney, it was a very full program with ancient Near Eastern history alongside it, full sort of spectrum of Semitic languages to learn alongside of a biblical studies and biblical Hebrew degree. So from that point of view, certainly when I was studying there, it was a very strong department with a strong history.
Yeah. Well, and I think what I found very interesting is this very integrated Hebrew, Old Testament, Jewish studies sort of component. Was that the way it was configured in your time? Or is that more recent?
So biblical studies and biblical Hebrew were within a department of Jewish studies and biblical studies.
Yeah. So you got strong language training, I would imagine.
Yes, strong language training, strong historical training, strong literature emphasis.
Good. So you got your PhD in Australia at a very premier school and graduate program. And of course, you launched your career internationally, doing a number of things. You've served on RBL or JBL?
RBL.
RBL. You're now on JSOT. You're on a board that I used to be on, which is Library of Bible, Hebrew Bible and Old Testament, right? So you have this international thing. So tell us what it has meant for you as an Australian biblical scholar fitting into this broader international network.
That's an excellent question because I think it's changed over time. Certainly when I came out of the program at Sydney University, this program in many ways is modelled on the sorts of programs that are internationally and there had historically been a strong link between the department in the University of Sydney and Hebrew University where I did a postdoc immediately after my doctoral work. And so from that point of view, I think I came out of my program at the University of Sydney feeling well trained for then, I guess, engaging in further research and certainly being exposed to a much wider breadth of scholarship and networks and so on. But certainly that's changed, especially in the last few years as I've come back to Australia and I've been now in Melbourne for, I think, 7 or 8 years. And I guess having more exposure even just to other scholars in Australia. So sometimes within Australia, it's a very big country geographically. Sydney and Melbourne are actually a long way away. And being influenced by the sort of approaches to biblical studies that have been taking place in Melbourne for a lot longer than I've been here. And I think that's continued to influence me and how I do critical work, literary, historical critical work, but I have learnt much more over especially the last 10 years, the ways in which that might look slightly different being situated here in Australia.
Yeah, good. So I know you do quite a bit of work on Samuel.
Yes.
But you do some other interesting historical stuff. Well, let's talk with Samuel first.
Good. I love talking about Samuel.
And I don't know if the commentary has been published or it's about to be
published.
It is
in press.
It's in
so
press.
It's 2026 forthcoming.
Yes, right. And we will look forward to that. It's in a fantastic series. I believe I'm very supportive of that particular series. So, okay, so what's new have you done? And you do both 1st and 2nd Samuel in that commentary, right?
1 Samuel 1 to 15.
Oh, okay.
So very,
15
chapters in a lot of detail, very focused. Yes.
Well, I mean, and I would say that's before Samuel starts to get exciting. Or maybe not.
Would you? You need to read the commentary, I think.
Precisely. All right, so give us a preview. First, of course, first 15 chapters, there's this wonderful one, chapter 8, and there's other sorts of things, etc. that's going on. So what new are you bringing, some of the insights that you're bringing in 1 Samuel in your commentary?
I mean, one of the interesting things about a commentary is in some ways you're just dealing with what's before you in each chapter and to sort of pick out one thing. One thing I love about this Kolhammer series is it combines literary reading, synchronic reading with composition history, but it also has scope for using other methodologies. So spending so much time on the composition history of these chapters really makes you very aware of the political context that it's come out of. And then the similarities and differences with what contemporary context people might now be reading Samuel in. So there is scope for using sort of less traditional methodologies such as disability studies, gender perspectives, reception history, and so on within this commentary series, which was a wonderful opportunity to sort of pick up ideas. So one thing that stood out for me, for example, which perhaps other people have seen, but I saw afresh with using this combination of methodologies is the story of Eli in 1 Samuel 3. So and the call of Samuel, so God's voice, Samuel, Samuel. And Samuel, even though Samuel's name is built on the root to hear, he hears it, but he doesn't understand it. The common interpretation of Eli is that he and it says that he has a sight impairment, that his eyes have grown dim. And the common interpretation is that his sight impairment is a sign of his moral impairment or his lack of spiritual insight. And certainly, to be fair, within, and of course, these kinds of disabilities are very culturally constructed. And to be fair, in many places in the Hebrew Bible, these ideas are grouped together. But I think once I looked at this further, especially employing some wonderful sort of disability perspectives, that certainly in the case of prophets, the reverse seems to be true. That for Eli, it's only once that he has this sight impairment that he truly recognizes the word of God. And there's a nice parallel in 1 Kings, I think it's 14, with the prophet Ahijah, who also has a sight impairment, and Jeroboam's wife comes to see him, and she's in disguise. And of course, the disguise doesn't work if you can't see. And it's precisely because of that he knows that, oh, this is Jeroboam's wife, and he delivers God's word. So I think this overturns what is a common assumption that we make about his sight impairment and his failings, which are certainly there in other sort of parts of the text. But once you look at the composition history, there's a good reason to think that this text has come out of a slightly different context, that Eli might be portrayed in a more positive way, and those different approaches came together to bring what I think is a fresh reading.
I think that's definitely interesting, because in some instances we don't understand how the office of the prophet works in the ancient world, because the Hebrew Bible doesn't give us a lot of details about it.
Yes,
so a physical impairment provides perhaps greater reliance upon spiritual insight and proximity to the spirit world. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so we'll look forward to that. And of course, these commentaries are written both in English and German. Yes, well, it's written in English and it will be translated into German. Yes. And did you collaborate with the German counterpart on the rest of the book? So there are two other authors who are writing in German for the other two parts. So I don't think their manuscripts are complete yet, but they will appear in German and be translated into English. Right. So we get to look forward to that. So that's one aspect of your exciting scholarship. And now, of course, I see you write some other interesting things, producing stuff about the ancient world that people will be curious about, but we would say we don't have the data for. I think one of your last articles had to do with kissing.
Yes.
In the Hebrew Bible?
In the Hebrew Bible.
And we probably think there's something in Song of Songs, but so help us there.
Yeah, absolutely. It might seem an esoteric, and it was specifically on intimate kissing. In anthropological, sociological studies, this is not actually a universal practice amongst different cultures, which really took me by surprise. There are so many aspects of our contemporary world that we just assume everybody does and did the same, and even in our contemporary world, this is not a uniform practice across cultures. And so that got me thinking, what about ancient Israel? And I think even though to some respect, maybe it is, as I said, esoteric. When did ancient Israelites start kissing? But I think it highlights something that's much more important than that, which is how culturally and socially and even politically bound these kinds of sexual practices are. So my argument, which is certainly it's tentative because of the lack of evidence, but I think there is good evidence to have a hypothesis that it may have been introduced during the Babylonian exile. And so to have a sense in which that a political change could I guess imperial, one of the effects of these imperial destruction of Jerusalem is to, of all things, introduce kissing. I mean, it shows how the effects of this went into every part of people's lives, into their family, into their social interactions. So there is a bigger picture in which this kind of question, I think, is important in giving us a bigger picture of what's taking place.
And do you see, because of course we do work with this idea of kind of Babylonian exilic period influencing earlier material. Do you see where aspects of intimate kissing are then placed on texts that were earlier to the exilic period?
And you're certainly pointing to the great difficulty with dealing with our evidence, because dating text is inevitably so difficult. So in the end, the best evidence I found was to compare Samuel King's with Chronicles, because there is a general, I never would use the word consensus, but most scholars will be content with saying that the parts of Samuel where there is usually familial kissing, that this predates the Chronicles material, especially unique material in Chronicles. But this is always the problem with text being updated. That to add in a kiss is a very easy thing to happen within these fluid texts that are constantly being revised. So I think that the spirit of the study is forming a hypothesis, which in the end is a sample from what I think we could know from this textual evidence, but I mean, this is something that anthropologists, that archaeologists, and so on all find might have additional contributions to. So I guess it's a slice of what might be a bigger picture of the evidence. Well,
fantastic. Again, another thing to look out for. Please go read it. And there are a bunch of other articles that she has written in that vein, which I think are very interesting studies, because as you say, we can make inferences about people's daily lives and activities based upon what we are doing and so on. Of course, your intriguing thing that these are also politically charged practices, I find very interesting. So yeah, go look at that. Okay, so tell us a little bit more about your teaching, because like several persons, you're teaching both at two levels, one of persons who are being formed for ministerial practice and careers, and then of course others at the PhD level. So you do both of those. So what's that like for you here in Australia?
I think one of the things about teaching in Australia, so I'm in an Anglican college, so we train as slice of our students are training for Anglican ordination, but I guess one of the features or one of the aspects of particularly Anglican theological education is a big emphasis on good scholarly work that would translate into a university context and so on. We value this as part of our tradition and part of our formation. So one of the, I guess another aspect is the way in which theology, ancient history even, but certainly biblical studies is left the mainstream universities. And so this has been a wonderful opportunity with at Trinity, and certainly with our outlook on theological education, that we get a very broad range of students at undergraduate and then postgraduate coursework levels, students who are perhaps training for Anglican ministry, or perhaps are in some ways affiliated with Anglican churches or another church, or students who have no connection whatsoever with church, but who are simply looking for, I guess, either a grounding in theology or even historical questions that is increasingly hard to find in the big universities in Australia. So whilst I want the humanities to thrive in our big universities, and this grieves me that that there is a decline in these subjects in the humanities. For us as an Anglican college, this is a big opportunity.
Yeah, so maybe you could take a while to explain to some people, because the uniqueness of the Australian context, where some of what will be taught in public universities in other parts of the world can't be taught in public universities here, but are being taught in another setting. Yeah.
Yes, I would love to explain it to you if I understood it. There is, and I fear that I will explain it with inaccuracies. But my understanding is, so for example, Trinity College is on the campus of Melbourne University. Trinity College itself is a residential college of Melbourne University, and the theological school there is very old, almost as old as Melbourne University. Right. So the relationship is very old between the two. But historically, in the founding of Melbourne University, part of their constitution, as I understand it, is that they don't have degrees in, I can't remember the exact wording, whether it's divinity or theology. And so historically, our theological school, despite being a stone's throw from Melbourne University, has always accredited its degrees independently from the university. Right. And this is the case with some of the big universities throughout Australia.
Okay. Well, that's a good explanation, giving us that relationship between Trinity College and Melbourne University, so that any undergraduates who have interests in biblical studies and theology and so on enroll at Trinity College to pursue those interests.
And there is that opportunity. Yeah,
right. So that's great. Okay, good, fantastic. So, talk about your favorite topic to teach.
My favorite topic to teach.
Yeah, what really drives you when you go into a classroom? Or favorite course.
Excellent question. I think my introduction to Hebrew Bible, Old Testament, will always be my favorite. I think that's partly because of the students. I love at the very beginning of the course to ask the students, what are your questions? What are your presuppositions about the Hebrew Bible? And I mean, obviously, every class is creative and have their own uniqueness, but there are also common themes, particularly questions about how the Hebrew Bible relates to the New Testament and so on. And one of the things I really love about this course is taking students through different parts of the Bible, different critical questions that come up. And by the end of the semester, inevitably, students asking completely different questions. Many students come looking for me to bring some coherence for the text of the Hebrew Bible, which obviously, if they can find coherence, I'm in support of that. But I think what I really want to emphasize in the course is the diversity of these texts and the joy of reading each text on its own terms and seeing it for its uniqueness, its contribution in a particular context, and how there is such wide diversity throughout this. And that's one of the that's a wonderful journey. I love traveling with students each year in that introduction unit.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing about introductory courses. People either hate them or love them.
Yes.
You're in the other camp.
Yep.
But I share that sentiment with you. It is a fantastic gift to do that early formation in students and helping them understand some of these critical. But of course, you get a nice overview of the field when you do that, when you do a course like that. Okay. Fantastic. So we're having this conversation during the international meeting of the SBL in Adelaide, Australia. What have you presented a paper here or will present a paper here?
I will present on Thursday.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So just talk to us briefly about what it is you're going to do in your paper.
My question for this paper is, what were the royal marriage practices of northern kings? Or what was an ideology of royal marriage in the Northern Kingdom?
Yeah. Right.
If there's not much evidence for kissing in ancient Israel, there is also not much evidence in terms of northern texts. And of course, identifying northern texts is very difficult. But I do think it's important to, again, as I said, these sorts of things are very much shaped by politics and culture. And if there were distinctives between the northern and southern kingdoms, then we would also expect that there could be distinctives in their marriage practices. And I try and make a case that the story of Jezebel and Ahab, even if it's a Persian period invention, that the data of Ahab marrying the daughter of another dynastic king nearby, that this may have represented a practice in the Northern Kingdom that was remembered. And looking at comparisons with texts from Mari, where we know a lot more about royal wives, and it's argued there are political similarities.
Oh, good. So. Yeah, that'll be interesting. Now, of course, I'm digging in my head to see if there's another marriage besides Ahab and Jezebel. But that's the one we have a lot of narrative for. The others may just well be notices of the marriage.
Marriage of Ahab's daughter, Atalia, to the Judahite king.
Yes.
But
yes, we forget about Atalia from time to time. The queen.
But you're right, you're digging around to find the evidence. Yes.
Right, well, of course, I do applaud your curiosity in these in these areas, because that's the beauty, of course, of doing Hebrew Bible work, that you have sometimes just a sentence or two that can lead you into something much deeper, and centuries of historical work as well. Okay. All right. Well, we have been having this conversation with Rachelle Gilmour, who's an associate professor at Trinity College in Melbourne, and also associate professor at the University of Divinity in Australia. Thank you for this conversation, Rachelle.
Thank you.